Why are we so scared of women caring for themselves?
Because the expectation is women shouldn't want that. They should only want to care of everyone else. The partner, the children, the extended family members, all the friends.
A lot of women see that leadership as a fault, where a lot of women are taught your job is to submit, lean back, and hope that he's going to take you there.
The state of the world and the male leadership for most countries across the world, how's that working for us? I think what we're lacking, what is missing at the heart of humanity is the matriarchal leadership.
Ladies and ladies, welcome to Things Your Mother Never Told You, the podcast by Dr. Amanda Hansen, aka Midlife Muse, where from time to time I take the mic and interview Dr. Amanda. My name is Diana and I. I'm Dr. Amanda's COO, and I'm here to ask her all the uncomfortable questions that society doesn't tend to ask. The questions that actually make difference and the questions that actually lead us to the answers and explorations that make change in our bodies, lives, nervous systems, and everywhere else. Thank you so much for agreeing for interview too.
I'm here for it as many times as we want to do this, or that you want to interview me. I'm here for all of it.
I wanted to ask you a few questions about something that I understand on the level of my nervous system. I understand on the level of my feelings, but I keep on struggling to put into words. And I really hope that today we will do that together.
Yes.
I witnessed you working with women for the past 3 years. This is how long we've been working together. You dedicated 25 plus years of your life working with women. The most incredible part about that journey was that not that you dedicated 25 years of working with women, you dedicated 25 years of your life working with women effectively. And it's a huge difference between doing something and achieving tangible results that sometimes don't even make sense. Sometimes you have to be in the room to witness the change. Sometimes you have to keep in touch with people in a matter of several years to understand how that change actually developed in them and translated into their life. And today, I want to talk about the journey of women who come to work with you and women who trust you, typically after they've tried everything else, typically after they've gone through traditional therapy, psychiatric treatments, somatic practices, all sorts of different things. They arrive to the space of Midlife Muse and say that this has been missing. Something shifts in them. And I really want to understand what it is. I've seen it many, many times. I got to witness it in real life. I know that it's happening, but I want to put it into words and try to describe it as an average journey of a person who then gets the results that they get in the space of Midlife Muse. I want to start with this question. What does the life of an average woman look like so that they arrive to the place where they start seeking help? Did you ever notice any sort of common threads in the journey of women that they all face, or majority of them faces, so that then they seek help, they seek solutions? What happens in the life of a typical woman there?
That's such a great question. I think in the life of a typical woman, they are being brought up in the structure, and I know it gets so exhausting hearing the patriarchal structure, but to not name it and not identify it as such is very elusive to understand what I'm even talking about. And patriarchal structure, just for context, is not about men. It's about a system where the rules are written by men to serve men, and we are all participating in it. And women can be as patriarchal as, sometimes I've seen women who are more patriarchalized functioning than even men are. So a woman is born into the world and she is living in her own little mind. If, let's say, she reaches the age of 7 to 10 years old and she's not already experienced sexual assault. And the reason I have to say that is I understand and want to be respectful that a lot of little girls are robbed of that childhood and they never get the innocence of that time. And I've worked with many of those women. But let's just say for the matters of this conversation, she's not had sexual trauma. She arrives to 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And up until that point, she's in this place in her mind of just operating from what feels good to her. So whether she wants to dance or sing or put outfits together or tell people how much she loves them or how beautiful they are, how much she likes their face or the way that they walk, she's just operating from such pureness. And if you're ever around a little girl, it's one of the most mesmerizing, beautiful, opening energies to be around because they just speak their heart. And of course there are levels of that. There are some who are more shy and reserved. But typically, she has this idea in her mind also of all the things that she wants to do. And she isn't yet in a place of wondering and questioning and judgment about, well, should I do that? What will people think? She's this like little template of possibility. And so when she reaches around 9, 10 years old is when she starts to have that conscious awareness that there's a whole world outside of her lived experience, what she thinks, what she believes, what she likes. And just as we've seen now girls at 10 starting to go to Sephora to do, 10-step self-care routines or skincare routines, and with the advent of social media being available to such young people, they are aware that there's this whole external world. But even prior to all the social media influence, even when I was younger, I arrived at this place and all of a sudden it's as if I looked up and I realized that people didn't necessarily like the way I was showing up. Don't walk that way, act like this, close your legs, don't say that, you're too much, your emotions are too big, go in the other room, you're so dramatic, that's a stupid idea, you're never gonna amount to anything. All the things that I started to hear, it's like slowly what happens to a little girl who's got all of this belief and all of these dreams is bit by bit, she gets chipped away at and chipped away at and chipped away at, where she shares something that she is feeling and someone says, well, that can't be possible. That's not true. So she starts to get gaslit regularly where she learns to not trust herself, shut down all her intuition because she realizes the way she looks, the way she speaks, what she dreams about, what she wants to do in the world, how she wants to express herself is not palatable to the outside world. So she starts contorting herself. She starts getting messages about how much is on that plate. Is that your second helping? So she stops also not trusting her body that wants more food. So from every angle, any woman listening, I'm sure, is nodding because that is the lived experience of the average woman. So then she goes into her teenage years, and now she moves from a life of being connected to herself, being in her body, and now she's performing. She is performing and paying attention to the cues from the outside world. Like, oh, okay, so grandma likes it when I only put a little bit of food on my plate and I can fit into the outfit that she bought me. And dad likes it when I act like this. And the boys in the neighborhood really like it when I do this. So she's not listening to what feels good anymore. And she is performing her life. So she's completely disconnected from her source. And then you go into your 20s and you go into your 30s. And now what's happening is more often than not, the average woman is performing the patriarchal checklist. Stay thin, get the guy, have some children, make this much money, be involved in this many social clubs, and don't show any pain and just numb your way through it. If you're feeling like there's some suffering, you know what? Life's not ideal for anybody. We're all going through hard times. Maybe you drink a little more wine just to cut the edge of it off, or you can scroll Netflix endlessly. There's shopping is always a great outlet. You can shop yourself till there's, no feeling anymore. You can go in the pantry endlessly and just eat it away. So we have all these easy fixes to numb the pain and ache. And I describe it as the average woman by the time she comes to me, she has an ache that something is really not right. Something is wrong. And so she starts seeking. She starts to come a little bit back online to herself. And so she starts seeking. And her options to create any sense of understanding of what's going on are typically male-based. So whether it's in the self-development world, whether it's in even a lot of the ayahuasca journeys and healing have been led by men. So her offerings in the world are typically like, come here for relief. And it's still through men telling women what they need. That's what we've historically seen. And so now we are in a space where we have more and more female leaders, and that is wonderful. But we have a lot of female leaders who have profound wounds of their own that are not being properly dealt with or healed, and they're rushing. And it's with the best intention, but they're rushing to lead other women when they haven't even led themselves yet. And so I receive a lot of women who come to work with me. They've tried like every healing modality out there. They have found it to either create more trauma and confusion and or land them in a place of, at the moment when they were participating in the event or the retreat or the mushroom journey, during the event, they had some realizations, they had some eye-opening experiences, they had some deeper connection with themselves, and it felt great. But then what women after woman after woman tells me is then they go back into their real lives, and within a week or two of exiting that event they were a part of or that healing ceremony, then they feel stuck and trapped in their life just like they did before they got there. So what women keep telling me is I didn't have anything tangible, like that spoke to the female way of living and being that really, really made any sense. So then I end up working with a lot of women who've spent 10, 15, 20 years trying everything, Diana. And I mean every modality. And they would get little pieces of relief here and there, but nothing that really was an understanding as to how to live in a life and create it more luxuriously and more beautifully in your soul. That's when they arrive to me, that's what this work ends up doing, because I am speaking a language like you and I've talked about, probably one of the hardest parts of this business. It's not about working with the clients. It's the most incredible, beautiful, easeful part for me. One of the hardest parts is getting women to understand what this work is, because you and I have talked about how do you create a sales page to explain magic? How do you create a sales page that assures that this is actually the return? Because my work, if we were to synthesize it down to like really basic words, my work is about a remembering and a returning. Remembering and returning, because this work has such ancient threads. And I've led myself in this work before I've led women. The further I lead myself, the further I lead the women. The more I've done it for myself and embodied it, I teach from a place of deep embodiment in my own life as opposed to a cerebral place. So I think trying to explain this work is like trying to explain the beauty of any piece of art. How would you ever even tell somebody what you are witnessing? What I witness happen to women inside of my masterminds and at Magnetic is, and a lot of the women I go on to keep in touch with for years after the work, and the stories they write and the things they tell me about their life and how it literally transformed. And it's the reason why most every day I cry, because this work is literally witnessing miracles. But this work, unlike needing an external thing all of the time, this work leads women home to themselves. And that is about self-sourcing. So I think why this work is so deep and so effective is because I help women see the structure and the beauty within them and how to work with the different elements inside of them and all the different archetypes. We synthesize it so beautifully that regardless of what comes up in your life, you have all of this to really anchor into and make decisions and choices for your life from those energies. So it's very profoundly tangible and mystical all at the same time. It's so hard to even put it into words. It's something you have to experience. It's really something that I think it almost does a massive disservice trying to explain it. So I trust that, we put the sales page up, we describe it the best we can, and we trust that the right women will always step in. And most of my buyers are buying from desire. They even say to me, I always ask them, how did you find out about this work? And most women say, I saw one reel, and there was something about the message, there was something about your energy, there was something about you. They're actually buying the energy and proximity to me more than they are buying. Most women are less concerned about steps 1, 2, 3, 4, because we know steps 1, 2, 3, 4 get flushed down the toilet as soon as you leave the event. I'm teaching women how to embody this kind of living, and that is why it's sustainable for your life.
I think that when we started working together, I had to come to some sort of conclusion regarding what this work is, so then we could describe it to the people and help them understand what it is. I described Midlife Muse for myself as a philosophy. I think it's a philosophy that is centralizing something but the man. It's centralizing something but this identity of a function in a world that it has endless expectations of you and zero understanding of you. We live in a world where women haven't been studied as much as men have. We're living in a world where women haven't been understood. We live in a world where women themselves don't understand each other and they don't understand themselves, and therefore they pass on that patriarchalized, deeply wounded system that lacks feelings and feminine essence. And unfortunately, most women to this day don't have any different language. And so my $1 million question since we started working together has always been, how do we communicate feminine language to the world of women who sincerely want to feel different, who sincerely want the change, who sincerely want to do, have, and be better for themselves, but who don't have that language? Because I think that one of the scariest things is to actually admit that the alternative might exist. Because when you have been raised in that system and you have been born to the family that has same expectations as the rest of the world does on you, the idea of doing something differently is terrifying.
Yes.
Because you will lose respect, you will lose love, you're going to disappoint your grandparents if you haven't done something by the rule book. You will be the black sheep of the family. You will be someone who is not as attractive and lovable and all of these things. What I found to be true after doing this work alongside with you for 3 years in my life is that I haven't lost anybody. All of my connections have completely transformed. They truly became fulfilling for both ends right now. I've never had better connection with my parents than I have now. I allowed portions of my talent to shine through that I wouldn't even admit before. And to me, this is natural rite of passage. But I have a privilege of being right next to you and seeing all of these things blossoming and happening in real life, right? What does the life of an average woman look like once they step on that path? They might not have that direct proximity to you, but they start figuring out beats and steps of where that change can happen. What does it usually look like at the beginning of that journey of a woman? We already identify why she arrives to that place where she starts seeking help and she pays attention to what you finally have to say. She tried everything else, it didn't work. She still feels bad. What do those first steps usually look like on her journey? What should she be paying attention to if she truly wants to do this journey right, if she wants to arrive to that place? And we will talk about what success in that field looks like afterwards. So talk to me about the initial stages of that discovery.
The initial stages of this process with me, and I'm talking, let's speak in regards specifically to what I feel like is a real benchmark of the work, which is hardly ever even advertised anywhere because we sell it before we even have time to advertise it. But my mastermind, Crowned, also you start to touch into this world through Magnetic, the live event. But what I would say is that there's almost a disbelief initially. It's almost like they're waiting, my clients are waiting for the other shoe to drop, because in the very beginning, when we start, I start on a deconstruction journey, right? Like, so we really begin with, before we can start to set the stage of building a new narrative, you can't build a new narrative on top of a dysfunctional one. You have to, it's like, if you go to buy a piece of property or you go to buy a house that's really, really run down, you wouldn't go to that rundown house and just slap some paint on it and be like, okay, the house is brand new now, because you still have a crumbling foundation. You have to start with the fresh slate. You have to really secure the foundation. You have to remove the bricks that no longer are stable and build the whole structure differently. So the first month with me is a lot of and I take on a very specific journey to deconstruct things they've never even questioned once in their life. And these are very educated women. These are high profile women. These are women who are doing incredible work in the world. Because, similar to the saying, a fish doesn't even know it's in water, these women didn't even realize the depth of how patriarchy was pervading every aspect of their life. The oxygen they breathe, every decision they make, every way they look at themselves in the mirror, every interaction, the way they deal with money, everything. And so I spend a really strong deep dive for a month helping them deconstruct the system that they've been living inside of, because you cannot begin to create something different until you really look at this. And it's hard and it feels destabilizing in the beginning and simultaneously exhilarating and invigorating, because what happens is you start deconstructing all of this, you realize there is a possibility of something different. Like it doesn't just have to be this, because as I deconstruct it, I then come in and showcase what the alternatives could be. Is it possible that maybe, right? And so then they are so percolating with this excitement of, as I release all of these beliefs, I can start walking the bridge to create something totally different. But initially there's that fear. So I do a lot of normalizing in the beginning of the fear that's coming up, the fear of losing people. And I ask them to hold the belief during our time together, especially in the beginning when they start to panic a little bit, if they're deconstructing and thinking everyone is going to leave me. I ask them to hold the belief that, in fact, every relationship will become better. The relationship with money will become better. The relationship with your body will become better, with your lover, with your partner, with your children, with your parents, with your best friends. Everything will get better. Can you possibly hold on even to 1 or 5% of the belief that that could happen in this work? And they say they can hold on to that small percentage. They doubt that it's possible, but they believe that maybe. And then as we move on this journey, and we start creating evidence of that. So I give them very direct ways of building more beautiful bridges to the people that they love. And I've shared time and time again, it is unbelievable to witness the beauty that happens inside of this work. And it's why every day, at the end of long days, I wake up as if it feels like Christmas morning to me. Growing up Christian, I grew up with believing Christmas was a thing. And I wake up every morning, I feel like it's Christmas. And I end my days with, people who are in close proximity to me. They don't understand how I have this much energy and how I work at the level that I work. And I said, because I'm not actually working as much as I am being. Like I am being the essence of who I am and guiding women on that journey. And it's so nourishing to watch women's lives completely change from the inside out in the most beautiful way, and their relationships get stronger. And there's something so miraculous about it and beautiful that it never feels extractive to me. It feels deeply nourishing to me. My work is such a privilege.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Am I understanding this right? You teaching women a new language.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Where they realize that they had the laws of physics explained to them wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
From the beginning.
Yes.
You're teaching women to look at themselves from different perspectives and understand their own nature from different perspectives, their own body, their own feelings, and to take a look at the world through a completely different perspective.
Yes.
That then supports their being, their growth, and transformation. Mm-hmm. Correct?
That is correct.
When a woman starts this journey and successfully gets through initial stages of it, and she even goes back to her life, because she embodied that as the new truth. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it.
This is right.
Once you learn that medicine did not study women equally as men, you will not be able to go to the hospital or a doctor's office and unsee those mismatches and those painful things that cause us so much discomfort, but were sold to us as our own weakness, that somehow we cannot bear certain discomfort simply because we are women. What happens in the life of a woman once she sees that difference, once she acquires that new perspective, and once she realizes that she no longer has to please anybody, she no longer has to sacrifice her needs, her desires, her nature to be loved? The moment she realizes that it's not only her who has to experience discomfort at the stages of growth, it's the rest of the world that should probably grow with her simultaneously and change and evolve as well. What does the life of a woman who's got this initial lens calibration look like?
If I were to pick one word, I would say liberation. Women feel like for the first time, they've described, I feel like I've exhaled and really been able to clear my lungs and bring in something that felt nourishing, where a lot of women felt like they were breathing up here and tightly contracted, moving throughout their lives. They feel so deeply, deeply nourished now through their own breath. Because what you're saying is exactly right. It is not, my work is less about, of course, we're talking and thinking and philosophizing a lot, but it's so much, we begin there to understand, but we don't stay here. Then we drop in. After we're at a certain part in the journey, we drop into the body because it is knowledge. I always say to my clients, knowledge is absolutely useless if it just remains knowledge in my work. Until you embody everything that you're learning, it will remain quite futile. It won't really move the needle in your life. It is when you understand the concepts and then I teach them practices to embody what I'm teaching them in their life and their lived experiences. I can always tell the difference of the women who are really going to have an incredible outcome versus those who aren't, because the ones who try to over-intellectualize the work stay stuck in their head. And I understand why. We're living in a world where that's what's celebrated. That's what normalized. It's like, give me the 3 steps to solve this problem and I'll do those 3 things and then we'll be good. And I am taking them on a journey of connecting deeply within. And if you have never done that before, it's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable for a moment. So it's really about helping them understand, okay, we understand this material now, what I'm talking about. Let's take it and I will show you how to live it in every single aspect of your life. And there is no stone unturned in my work. We go everywhere.
Give me a few key areas of life where women have most distorted perspectives. Aging is definitely one of them, right? What else?
Sensuality. There's a really, really torrid relationship for women in sensuality because there's so much shame connected to desire. And so helping women get in touch with what it is that they so deeply desire. And we go into places and conversations that are so heart-opening and mind-blowing simultaneously. And it's almost the month we spend time in each archetype for a month. It's the time where, if you could imagine, it is the most alive. Women report to me, this is the most alive I've felt in 30 or 40 years. I didn't even know I could have conversations like this. I didn't even know I could speak like this. I didn't know I could play with the energy through my 5 senses of joy and pleasure and desire and playfulness. Another thing I think that we've really become profoundly disconnected from is play, which is also a big part of sensuality. And I don't mean play, sexual play, while that's important. I'm talking about play as it relates to playfulness in life, and being able to dance with that inner maiden inside of you, that little girl version inside of you. So a lot of this work is helping women really merge with all versions of themselves so artfully and beautifully. Another really big piece is around mothering, because, in this work, I've really come to understand that while every one of us have had a mother, there are really very few women who've been properly mothered. And so that's a fundamental piece of this work, is teaching women how to mother themselves, how to meet those needs within themselves. Another one is around power as it relates to choice, power as it relates to money, power as it relates to your body. And a lot of where I really hold women, I think of it as almost like I'm holding this torch and I'm standing there and I'm not coming towards them. I'm standing there and I'm encouraging them to walk towards me. And that torch is a symbol of power, because I know a lot of people like to use empowerment and self-empowerment, and I'm here talking to women about power. And I think it's time to normalize power for women, because we've been so afraid of power, because how we've witnessed power in the world is that patriarchal power that takes and extracts, and it's power over others. I'm talking about the power within, the power that is created from your own life and that is often of service to the world. It's a very different kind of power. So we play with the relationships of power, but in holding that torch simultaneously with asking them to rise to their power, I'm also doing it through the lens of no more victimhood. I really pull women higher and encourage them. And I show them very specifically how they're staying trapped in that cycle and that washing machine of victimhood. And they are astounded at times when I point it out very lovingly because have been so blinded to it. And I show them the alternative. If you were to step into your power, what this could look like and sound like. And it is so liberating. It is so liberating to watch women stand up and start walking towards their power. It is the key. It is the key to every answer in their lives. And that's that same power and that lack of victim and stepping more into the creatrix energy, that same way of living is what helps you sit down and have that really hard conversation that you've been needing to have. That's the same way that you ask for the pay raise. That's the same way that you stand in front of the mirror and you honor yourself rather than berate yourself. That's the same energy that negotiates different styles of friendship and what you really crave in those relationships. It's that same energy that writes the letter to the mother that you cut out of your life 10 years ago. It's the same one who goes to her children and says, tell me all the ways that I've hurt you unknowingly. I want to hold space for that, because there was a time in my life where I wasn't as resourced as I am now. And I want to know in the ways that maybe I've caused you harm. And it's the power is the woman who finally claims her power. She brings it to all these spaces to make them more beautiful.
Why is that power so vilified? Why is that power so shamed, hated? I personally heard multiple people in my life telling me that they are intimidated by me.
Mm-hmm.
And all I do is say the truth.
Yes.
And don't let anybody to engage me into their game that already has harmed me for so many, many years. It sounds like the moment I started caring about myself and the moment I started claiming what's mine, I became a villain in many people's eyes. Why? Why are we so scared of women caring for themselves?
Because the expectation is women shouldn't want that. They should only want to care and take care, of everyone else. The partner, the children, the extended family members, all the friends. We have raised women on the idea that your worth comes through service to others at all times, at all costs. And that is so deeply ingrained inside of us that there is as much work as I have done. I currently have an adult son who is home for a couple of week period who just had a surgery. And I work long days and long hours, most often from the home. I have an 11-month-old puppy. My other kids are no longer living at home. And while I am working, while I'm doing whatever I'm doing, all this beautiful work in the world, there is a constant feeling in the back of my head saying, you should be checking on him. You should be taking the puppy for a walk. You should. There is some automatic system in there that no matter how much beauty and art and healing I am in service of in the world, there's this feeling of it's never quite enough, that I should have done more. I should have helped more people. I should have stopped what I was doing to go down and make this thing for this person. And I've done a lot of work, and it is to excavate it completely is almost like I think we might have to have a lobotomy because it is so deep in there. This feeling of I've never done enough. I've never helped enough people. I've never made enough people happy. I've never talked to enough people. I've never sat with them long enough. I've never given them enough time or attention with extended family. Even when we host a lot of people for vacation spots and take people on different trips, it is never about how I showed up as much as there's that little bit of, yeah, but you could have done more. You could have done more. So I think we are set as a system to expect women to give to the point of complete and utter exhaustion at all costs, at all times. So when a woman starts creating boundaries for herself, or a woman starts calling someone higher and refusing to stay drowning in their victimhood with them, or any of those types of things, she's too truthful. She's taking up space for herself. She's not allowing you to get away with your BS. And that's uncomfortable. We're like, what are you doing? You were supposed to play by the rules. You were supposed to make sure at all costs you would sit here and get wrapped up in my victim story with me and try to make it better. And you would think of all the ways you would come to the rescue and help ease the pain. Why are you asking me to look at it and do something different? Why aren't you putting the oxygen mask on and helping resuscitate me here? And so when a woman stops doing that, and I stop doing that because I see all of the potentiality in all of these women. And I'm like, no, we're gonna go higher. I'm gonna call you higher. I'm not going down there with you. It can be triggering. And my clients can be triggered by it in the beginning too, because they're used to oftentimes in therapy, their therapists being like, tell me how you feel. Oh, it makes sense that you feel that way. That must be so hard. That must be so difficult. There's a very small window where that's helpful, but I am not going to sit with you for 2 or 3 years and do that, because that is insulting to you. That is insulting. There's a time and a place where I'm going to ask you to rise, because you are not going to waste your life continuing to give your power to the people who hurt you, your power to the systems that lied to you and pimped you out. No, I am going to hold the space, and we're going to do both at the same time. So I'm a believer of like, we can hold that was really hard and you still carry the remnants of that pain from your childhood, and we're going to create something beautiful. And it's not about bypassing the pain. I am not at all in favor of bypassing truth and pain. I honor it, but I don't just sit there. You can honor the truth of the pain and what's happened, and simultaneously build a ladder up to something that feels more beautiful.
That is so true. Pain can become your organ, or it can become your fuel. And the way you help women to sit through the pain and turn it into the fuel is absolutely magical. I've seen it doing with hundreds of women in the room, how they outcomize that pain and start completely new journey right there, just because they realize that it's not that rudimental organ that is poisoning their entire system, that they have to care for. Not even an organ, it's like a tumor.
A tumor.
And you teach them that it can be different, and they transform. And I think that one of the biggest misconceptions about female power is that if I get in touch with my true desires, I somehow will stop loving everybody else around me. Interesting enough, why would they assume that, right?
Yeah.
Because I still want to care for my loved ones. I still want to take my puppy out for a walk. I still want to make a meal. I still want to do all of those things. I just don't want to do those things at the expense of my mental health. I just don't want to do those things at the expense of my well-being. And if I work the entire day and then I want to come home and lie down alone in a darkness with nobody talking to me for a few hours, that's okay.
Yes.
Because we're not asking for that much to be nourished and replenished. It's not like we want to flip the table and say, oh, I no longer love you. I don't care about you. Just because of everything I've already been through, now it's your turn to suffer. Women who don't want to make other people suffer, women who outcomize that pain, they don't want anyone to go through what they've gone through. That is the biggest difference between women who are changing the world and some people who are not healing and selling healing as something else, selling performance as healing. Performance is not healing. So when a woman is fully embodied her power, when she already got in touch with that power, to the extent where she can create from that power. You've created Midlife Muse from that power. You've created your entire life from that power. Tell me a little bit about your life and that being integrated into your life. You have 4 children. You've been married for 28 years. You have hundreds of people all around the world that you're working with. You reach millions of people every month who come to you through social media and your website. Your book became bestseller 3 times in a matter of 5 hours after it was released into the world. You've gone through every possible situation and every possible way, and you cross that field of pain that most of women never cross. They stop somewhere in the middle and they say it's too hard or it's impossible, or listen, like the grass is too high, there's nothing on the other side of that field. You actually crossed it. You're standing on the other side of that field. What does your personal life look like? Because a lot of people get triggered by your confidence. A lot of people get triggered by your success. they love to assume a lot of bad things about you. They assume that you're single. They assume that you have 700 cats living in your house. They assume that
I'm
you're
allergic to cats, so
I
that
know,
would
right?
never be possible.
Oops. Sorry, sorry, guys.
Sorry to disappoint
Yeah,
you.
that's a mismatch right there. But what does your personal life look like? Because you are the ideal version of what the embodiment of that work looks like. I've seen your relationships with your children, with your husband. I know your work ethics. I know how much energy you pour into your clients. I sometimes can't understand where that energy is coming from, but I find it to be extremely inspiring. So, what does your personal life look like with all of those things in place? And I know that it took you time to insert that new philosophy into every aspect of your life. It didn't happen overnight. No one went around and flipped the tables just saying, like, okay, we're changing everything at once, right? What was it like for you, and what does your life look like now?
Yeah, so there was a time probably about 18 years ago where it was very clear that things were not going well. Now, for the outside world looking in, they would say I literally had the dream life. Everything that you were told by patriarchal standards would make for an incredible life. And I was filing for divorce because the ache was so profound that I thought, then I must have just, again, let me pause for a second. In a world where the male gaze is centralized, and we grow up as little girls with get the husband, get the man, look a certain way, and all decisions are made. Well, if I do this career, what will he think? Everything being male gaze centric. I had this sense that if my life wasn't good and I wasn't happy, it must be because I married the wrong person. And I felt trapped. And I felt like, well, then that's it. I've just married the wrong person. Now I just got to marry the right person. And then it will be like someone took the magic wands and everything will be fine. Because I too, even 18 years ago, even being in this work wasn't where I am now. I was here in the work. I hadn't embodied the work. So I was still centering this idea that marrying the right person or being with the right partner would be the magic potion. And so I filed for divorce. We did not go through with that divorce because we had a reckoning, and that's a whole story for another day, that we really decided to reprioritize some things. But the biggest thing that got reprioritized was me no longer saying yes when I actually meant no. It was me actually speaking the truth of my heart and my soul. It was me deciding that there were going to be some things that changed as far as like the way we were raising the kids and the structure of our life, that friendships were some things were going to shift. And I decided all that too muchness that I'd been quelling and like pushing away and pushing away and pushing away. And let me give an example for anyone listening. Too muchness could look like this. You have some friends over to have dinner, and in traditional suburbia, that might look like a couple bottles of wine, cocktails, the music goes on, people are dancing, but it's more around lots of drinking. Like the eating and the drinking seems to be the center of the gathering. And while I'm not against eating and drinking, the ache that I talked about earlier, the ache was for really deep conversation. The ache was for the fireplace going and candles lit everywhere. And yes, music playing, and yes, dancing happening at some point, but conversations and maybe no alcohol, like the leaning in and like here, that's what I was aching for. And so I tried to pretend that all those parties we were hosting was enough. I tried to pretend that going to lunch with girlfriends for 2 hours and talking about their new favorite hairspray or their new favorite nail polish was enough. And it's not because I was surrounded by bad women or ignorant women. It's because I think we were all kind of coded like, this is what you do. This is what women talk about. And I wanted to talk about what are you going to regret when you're taking your final breaths in your life? I wanted to talk about when it's all said and done, what is the thing that you wish you could have gone back and done differently? What if you could take a brush and just create on a piece of canvas the most beautiful, ideal version of yourself? What would it look like? If you could sing, be a famous singer or dancer, which one would you have picked? Why? What did you dream about when you were a little girl that never came true? How do you feel about that now? And I made myself a weirdo for wanting to have these conversations. And so I hid all of that because I thought that was too much. And there was evidence when I tried a little bit that it was too much. What I know now was because I wasn't being authentic, because I was afraid of the too muchness, I attracted mismatched kind of energies. And not that anybody was wrong or bad, it's just I didn't attract the people who wanted to do and spend time the way I wanted to spend time. So I had to finally be like, this is how I want to live my life. These are the kind of conversations I want to have. This is how I want to start living. And so I started to show up that way in my marriage, in my friendships, with my children, in my business, everywhere. And then let everything naturally evolve from there. And some people fell away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. And it doesn't mean that there was anything wrong with our friendship. It was beautiful while it was there. It just meant it wasn't any longer an energetic match. One of us was going to have to force being somebody that we weren't. And so, and my marriage has been through, my husband jokes, he's like, I think I've been married to 18 different women since then. And it's true, because just like a beautiful tree outside the window, or a beach you go to, or flowers that you plant, everything in nature is constantly evolving. It is dying and being reborn. It is sprouting new, branches. It is constantly in its own evolution. And I, as a part of Mother Nature, I am constantly in my own evolution, and I don't fear that. I am constantly shedding what no longer serves me. And that's why my husband jokes, but also I think there's some seriousness to it, is, he said one morning, he texted me and said, I would love to know what is going on inside of that beautiful brain every morning when you wake up, because he can't even believe the things that I talk about or bring to the table. And so I hid that from him for so many years, and I told the story he wouldn't be able to handle me. Mm-hmm. It's because I was afraid I couldn't even handle me, because I'd been conditioned to be too much. And when I started showing him little pieces of me and little pieces of me, what it's done, it's like so powerful what it's done for our relationship, our family, our friendships. Our intimacy is extraordinary, but it took me deciding with all the bravery, I'm just going to move forward with who I fully am. And either we will find our way or we won't. And it's not because anybody's wrong. It just means that maybe who I pretended to be for so long, that really put together girl who was funny in the right moments and who was reserved when she needed to be, maybe all that performance, I just attracted the wrong person. And if me fully showing who I am is no longer a match, then that's probably a good thing for us to realize. So he can move on and I can, with maybe no one or better matches in our lives. So I did that. I became so raw, so vulnerable, so real. And there were times where it was very uncomfortable. And one of those stories I can think of is when I started going online onto social media. And I'm trying to tell a couple of these stories for context so people can understand what it sounds like and looks like when you're in it. So when I decided, because COVID had happened and the traditional way of seeing people in my office was changing, I decided to start, being on social media and seeing if I could reach more people. And that organically really started to happen because we were on lockdown. One of the things my very, very well-meaning and well-intended mother asked me was, she called me one day after I'd posted something, and she asked me why I had such a need to get attention. And I sat with it for a moment and I said, attention. Oh, I understand, Mom, what you see, because you are still so deeply saturated in everything that you do in life, or the way she was raised, or the way she believes. Anything you do in this lifetime is for the male gaze. It's for male approval. It's for male attention. It is for a male to be proud. It's for a male to want to marry you. It's to please the male. So you think because I'm on social media speaking, my audience is women, that I'm speaking to women, that I'm somehow doing it to get attention. No, I'm here to help liberate women. I'm here to share a message, to let them know what's possible. But it was this moment for her of like, if you're doing anything in the world, anything is for approval or attention, rather than being. I was just turning on a camera and being myself. And so helping her even deconstruct, that was a big moment for her. And when I went to my husband and said that I want to reimagine how we do this marriage, and there was resistance on his part at first, he's like, but I think it's great. And I helped him in the context of business understand. And I said, let me ask you something. You've been in the medical industry for over 30 years. Are things being done exactly as they were 30 years ago? And he's like, well, of course not.
Only for women.
Yeah, right. Only for the speculum. We've not developed a new speculum since the 1800s, which I talk about in here. But we started having this conversation. I'm like, you have a research and development team. There's always innovation. You're always looking at how to bring new things to the market and make healing time after surgeries less painful and less of a long journey for them. Is that correct? Yes, of course. Right. So when I helped him understand it through the business lens, you're constantly in innovation in business. There are always new changes and ways of approaching it. Why would we not apply that same philosophy to our marriage? Why would we think that what we said yes to in our 20s was going to be enough when we are in our 50s? So when he contextually took it in from that level of understanding, it all started to come together for him. It was like, oh, okay. So me being able to help my mom see why she had this perspective and why my husband had this perspective, and this is what I do with my clients. There's like a shift in philosophy. It's like, oh, maybe there is a totally different way to reimagine that. And for me, that's just opening doors so that my mother and I could have an incredibly different relationship than we had 5 years ago. My husband and I can have the most beautiful version of relationship we've ever had in almost 29 years of marriage, right? So first I had to do this work within myself and stand for it at all costs. And 9 times out of 10, it has brought people closer to me, and there's more emotional intimacy than there ever was. And it's so nourishing and so fulfilling.
So, do I understand it right that you had to take a role of a leader in reimagining
Oh, yes.
everything in your life? You
Yeah.
were the one who embodied this philosophy at the core with few to none examples of how it should be done. And you took that risk in your marriage, in your relationships with other people, and you said, it has to be me who is going to do this work. Because what I see happens with a lot of women is that they're waiting for someone to come and save them, princess in a tower, hope that someone will choose to come you. If not, you will just, rot on that pretty bad. And you had to change that belief first and foremost. I know that in your work, this is exactly what you do with women. You brew leaders. You give them that powerful certainty that they can do that. And one of the worst beliefs that women carry and then gets deconstructed in this work with you is that it has to be us who lead that. Because I feel like a lot of women think that if their man is not taking them where they want to be, they are, as women, somehow are the failures because they were either not able to inspire their man to take them where they want to be, or they picked the wrong one, or there is something wrong with the man. They just can't even understand how is it possible for a woman to take charge of anything. What do you have to say about that, where a lot of women see this work and that leadership as a fault, where a lot of women are taught, me included, from the beginning of my life, growing up in Russia, where people were telling me that your job is to submit, lean back, and hope that he's going to take you there. And I'm like, what if he doesn't?
Well, let's look at the world right now, the state of the world and the male leadership for most countries across the world. How's that working for us?
Well, pretty terribly.
Yeah, so I think what we're lacking, what is missing at the heart of humanity is the matriarchal leadership, right? And I think that there's a beautiful way to balance that. And so I am not trusting that where are men learning how to be divine leaders? And I mean that with all due respect. My husband, my sons, my brother, we have these conversations all the time. Where are they learning it? If they are not being raised in an environment, in a home where they are learning and seeing a role model of divine, sacred, masculine, how are they supposed to know? Because the world, just like the world is, the patriarchal structure is hurting women so desperately, the patriarchal structure is hurting men so desperately. Who's showing men how to divinely lead in partnership in the world as parents? Where is that happening? So I believe deeply and will stand forever for this when women say to me, but he won't and he doesn't. I said, well, you have two choices. You can sit there on the ground pouting and waiting for him to figure it out. And I promise you about 95% chance he won't. And not because he's not capable, but because who's showing him? Where are the models of it, right? So he's doing exactly what he's been told in this patriarchal structure to do. If you know a more beautiful way, why would you not take his hand and invite him into that?
How are you supposed to do that, though? Can you explain how can you possibly do that? Because the instant assumption is that you somehow are becoming a man in a relationship or in a connection, and all of a sudden you are this masculine figure who is fixing everything and taking him, and that somehow emasculates a man. Can you please explain how is it actually done?
Yeah. So anyone listening, if you listen to this conversation, I'm going to do like a minor role play here. And if you hear emasculation in this, then I think there would be a lot of work that would have to be done. So a conversation would look like, I literally coached a woman through this yesterday on our group mastermind call, who is feeling really, really frustrated with her husband wanting to spend most Friday and Saturday nights watching Netflix and not be really deeply connected together. And his rationale is, well, we live together, we're together all the time. Why would I have to like be paying attention to you every Friday and Saturday night? And so I coached her through how to have a conversation with him about this. And I just want to say, before we go into this, she did have that conversation an hour after that session, came back into the Voxer group and reported that it worked beautifully. And he understood. So it's through this lens. It is, and I have another really great example of this as well in my own personal life, but it's a conversation that begins with sitting down with the person that you love in a neutral time. We're not going to sit down in the time like where we're already heated and upset, but in a neutral time where we're sitting down and saying to them, I really love you so much. And I love what we've created. I love this relationship. And I love myself as well. And I really want us to both feel really nourished and really satisfied. I want you to love being in this relationship. I want it to feel harmonious for both of us. And so because of that, I wanted to bring something up that I've been noticing. When every Friday and Saturday night, you go into the other room and turn the Netflix on and you stay there for hours, I miss you. I feel a disconnect. And I love being together. And I was thinking, I have some ideas and I'd love to hear from you and some of your thoughts and ideas. I was thinking that maybe we could find a way where we watch some Netflix together on one of the nights, and then the other night we do something. Maybe we play a card game, or we go out for a walk, or we go to a new restaurant that we've heard about that we haven't tried yet, or we study something together, or we take a dance class together. I don't know what, we can come up with some ideas, but I miss you. I miss having emotional connection with you. And when you're in the other room on a Friday night, I just think the whole time I'm spending like, how could we just be together? There's very few men who are going to say, well, fuck that. I don't want to. No. And if he does, then there's a sign, get out of the relationship. He's watching Netflix because he doesn't want to be with you. But if most men who really love this woman are going to say, yeah, baby, I love you too. That where they get scared is they don't know what else to do. They don't know. Most men know how to open up a beer, and this is not meant to be insulting at all. Again, what alternatives, what role models? They know how to watch a football game. They know how to go offline and disconnect. They know how to play a video game. They know how to drink a beer. They know how to watch a football game. They know how to observe and be in that way, but they don't necessarily know what else or how else to do it. So that's where we get to come in. We are the weavers. We are the women who bring the magic. We get to infuse the relationship with new ideas, new strategies, right? And so most men are going to be like, okay, I don't know, what do you want to do? Like literally very well-intended, beautiful men who truly don't do anything different because they don't even know what to do. And a lot of men report to me that they're afraid they're going to pick something that's going to be the wrong thing, that they're going to get critiqued when they do it. So it's just easier to go into the man cave and just watch the show, right? And so you get to craft a whole new identity and a whole new way of being together in a relationship. And so more often than not, that invitation is so beautiful. So yeah, I think that this work just brings people closer together. Oh, that is what I've seen historically, is that my work makes relationships so much more emotionally intimate and connected on a very nourishing and soulful level.
I personally experienced what you're describing in relationship with my father. Mm-hmm. There was a time when my father and I haven't spoken for about 7 years because there was so much assumption about what it is and what the other person is thinking and how things worked out between him and my mom and what I'm probably thinking and what he's probably thinking, where at some point I realized that my pouting and my pain are not going to resolve it. Someone has to start first. And I knew that he probably won't because he's been hurt for about 20 extra years on this planet. And I decided to reach out to him and say, I love you. That will never change. And we have to reimagine it somehow. If you're open to this, I need you. Yes, I just need you to be open to this and we'll find a way. It took him 4 months to respond to me. And in those 4 months, I was thinking to myself that if something shifts in me, that's not love. Because my extension for that connection is love. And if it changes, it's not love. And I know it's love. And now, probably 5 years into our new life, I have a dad. I have dad, and we're building this relationship to the best extent of both of us as much as we can. Just like you teaching about not going to Home Depot and asking for milk, we're not going to each other for, what we can't ask in there. But I have dad, and he's sending me memes, and we're laughing, and we are talking about fun stuff, and it's a whole lot better because I stopped fearing my inner leader, and some of it definitely felt like a trust fall. Some of it definitely felt like a leap of faith because we don't have a lot of examples in our circles of friends that demonstrate those things for us. And I'm lucky that I have you by my side. But a lot of women feel like being the first one is too dangerous. Being the first one is too scary. It's probably not going to work out. And for that, I think that it was a huge reason why we are turning Midlife Muse into what we're turning it into. I feel like if you have this ache and if you have this desire to have a different life, to have a profound support circle where you will be held by other women who are already doing this work with the beautiful integrated leader who transformed every part of her own life in accordance with that philosophy.
That's how I can speak so assuredly to it and guide women just with absolutely zero hesitation, is because there is so much evidence, not just in my own life, but client after client. And I'm talking all cultures, all belief systems, all around the world, single, married, widowed. I have seen the evidence for so long now that I know that this is the cure that we've been looking for. And that's why it feels so like such a privilege to do this, because I've been gifted this incredible passion for the work. I've been gifted almost what feels like sometimes unlimited capacity. And I'm here to show up because there's nothing more beautiful than watching a woman do this work and then all the people that it affects around her. It changes entire families and communities and even places that she works.
We have an exciting event coming up. It's going to be in August in New York City. Dr. Amanda is going to speak at Omega Institute. And Dr. Amanda is going to host an event that is called Sacred Assessment. And can you tell us a little bit more about what are you going to do with the women in this room and why every woman who wants a better script for her life should absolutely be there?
Yes. So it's in Rhinebeck, New York, which is a little bit outside of the city, but it is magical if you've never been to Omega. It feels like you've entered like a fairy tale land of sorts. It just feels, if you've ever been to a place where you feel like anything is possible, it feels that it's that energy at Omega. So I'm so profoundly honored that I've been asked to speak there, because Omega is such a beautiful place that I have gone to before. And to think that now, full circle moment, I'm going to be having the honor to teach there. So I'm going to be teaching, like you said, sacred assessment to really help women. We are going to spend that weekend. We're going to spend the first amount of the time really deconstructing. I'm going to be asking all of the questions to help you understand the operating system by which you've been functioning. And we'll look at the places where the patterns have been faulty and not led to the life or the results you'd so hoped or dreamed of, and you feel stuck in them. I'm going to help you look at where you're stuck and what systems are keeping you stuck. And I'm going to help you craft your way out of that with a very specific method that I use so that you can create everything you've ever dreamed of and even beyond anything you could possibly imagine. And I think that's what's so incredible about this work is clients, as we're wrapping up, often say to me, Dr. Amanda, I could not have fathomed that I would get out of this 6-month program what I got. I could not have even articulated it. I didn't even know that things like this could happen. And I'm more than blown away. And so for that weekend at Omega, I will be taking them on a condensed version of what I do in 6 months in my mastermind. I will be doing at Omega for the weekend. It is going to be a very deep portal and very powerful.
They're in for a treat.
Yes, I
I'm
cannot
excited.
wait.
Thank you so much for this interview. I love you.
Thank you. I love you so much.